Men of Reddit, what are some telltale signs that a woman is creepy? Story 1. This girl I met on Tinder had me take her out to a restaurant, and then switch tables with her friend. They'd been on blind dates and decided to switch. Her friend was not as attractive and I was very uncomfortable. After ordering my food, I went to the bathroom for approximately 10 minutes to contemplate my exit strategy. When I got back, they had both left. The other guy asked if he could sit with me, so we had dinner, and he ate his date's enchiladas. It was actually kind of fun after they left. Story 2. Outright refusing to believe that a guy might not be into her advances. I've seen a woman stare in bewilderment at her boyfriend after he had to repeatedly remove her hand from his crotch because she couldn't comprehend that he didn't feel like getting felt up in a public area. I've also had a woman middle-aged throw a tantrum because I wouldn't buy her a drink when I, 22 at the time, was at a bar while I was with my parents and some visiting family members. Story 3. My ex would freak out and throw things and scream at me. That's not the disturbing thing. She would forget about it, hit reset, and act like it didn't happen the next day over and over. I started filming her episodes to prove to myself I wasn't going crazy. Story 4. She'll joke about having kids before you're even in a serious relationship. I went on a couple dates with this one girl who had mentioned how much she wanted kids. Nothing unusual, pretty common actually. I'm looking forward to being a dad one day. Then she started sending me those weird things where you put two people's pictures together and see what their kids would look like. One time would be quirky, but she sent me a different one every morning for a week. Broke it off when I realized I hadn't even given her a picture of myself. Story 5. Met this girl in church group in middle school. We got to know each other because of the group, but didn't really become friends or anything. Stopped going when I went to high school and never talked to her for 3 years. She commented on a FB status I had and we got to chatting, and I agreed to hang out the next weekend. I asked if we should invite other people in our old church group, since I hadn't seen any of them in a while, and she said no. I thought this was 'cause she liked me and wanted to hang out with me, so I was flattered. I kept talking to her throughout the day. The next morning I woke up around 10 a.m. to about 7 to 8 missed calls to voice messages and countless text messages from her. I was pretty creeped out by then. The nail in the coffin was one of the messages I got was from an old friend from the church group asking me if I talked to that girl. I was confused how my friend knew I talked to this girl the day before. Turns out the girl started messaging my friends asking when I wake up in the morning and why I hadn't messaged her back. Story 6. I had a boss who acted like I could do no wrong. She praised me and thought I was the best. Then one day, like a switch, she turned on me. She acted like I was the spawn of Satan. I don't know how I didn't lose my job. Somehow I weaseled my way out of that mess. Then I noticed she does the same thing with all her new men employees. I don't take well to obsessive praise anymore after her. Story 7. When she puts a phone in your trunk on top of your spare tire to track you via GPS. I don't use my trunk. She knew that. She hooked it up to the 100 to charger in my trunk and put a tracking app on the additional line she bought. I only discovered it when I had a blowout and had to use it. When I questioned her about it, she said she had trust issues. But good news. Every time I told her I was somewhere, I was at that place. The story had a happy ending for me. It was a toxic relationship. But my next relationship was with the woman who became my wife. We will be celebrating our 8th wedding anniversary. In a couple of months, I sometimes wish I had been able to help my ex. She had quite a few good qualities, but the suspicion, insecurity, and attempts to control me were too much for me to deal with at the time. It sucks when you see what someone could become, but you know they probably never will. We broke up after that. Story 8. Asking for your passwords, phone, email, Facebook, etc. as a sign of trust. Nope. I have nothing to hide. However, when you think you need to have that information, it shows you already don't trust me. And anyone who asks and then says they won't use it is lying. They may not use it that day or even soon, but they will use it at some point because the same suspicion that led to them asking for it will lead them to use it. Story 9. When they know more about your errands than what you told her. Extra creepy point is she becomes angry when you deviate from your initial daily plans. Extra creepy points if she starts angrily texting you when you change your plans as your day is unfolding. Story 10. When she thinks my beard, hair is public domain. Drunk girls at bars love to just walk up and grab my beard or run their fingers through my hair. Excuse me, bitch. I don't care how hot you think are. Keeping your greasy thought fingers away from my face. If you would like to touch either. Fucking say, hey, you have a real nice beard, hair, would you mind if I felt it? And I'd be happy to give you a go. But don't think for 1 second that you're entitled to just start touching me just because you're hot. It's creepy and makes me uncomfortable. Not to mention, who the hell likes random people grabbing their face? Story 11. An all-consuming obsession with horses. An inability to live her life as it is now. Instead being laser-focused on getting a husband and then having children. I'm not talking about normal long-term goals here. I mean a single girl who's always talking about finding her husband and having kids. When the proper next step is finding a boyfriend, the step after that being engagement. Then marriage, then having children. FWIW. Every girl I've known who is like this has also lived rent-free with parents, which tends to limit one's romantic opportunities. Story 12. I've posted this before, Buat, a long time ago in the 90s. I was set up on a blind date. The girl knew too much about me. She knew my brother's names, where I grew up, and other personal stuff you'd have to dig a little to find out. This was pre-Facebook, and back in the 90s she would have had to ask people who actually knew me to find out. She was just a friend of a friend of a friend kind of thing. So I nope out of that one pretty quick later. I asked the people who had set up the date what the hell, etc. And turns out the girl had this super long crush on me and was reportedly devastated that I wasn't into her. Luckily I steered clear of that possible Stephen King novel scenario. Story 13. When she tried to blame her constant control and guilt antics on a bad reaction to her birth control. We lived about an hour away from each other, and she called me from her car in my driveway and insisted, almost breathlessly for 20 minutes, that she had to see me and explain this in person, which I absolutely refused. She knew I was home, my car was there, but the whole thing was so out of the blue and stalkery. I told her over and over I didn't want to see her, and she could say whatever it was over the phone. And all this after I told her clearly weeks before I hoped we could be friends, but that we should go no contact for a couple months to let things settle. I found out later why she was so insistent. In the 3 weeks since I broke up with her, she was basically starving herself, exercising obsessively, and she was a total couch potato prior and lost around 20 pounds. She convinced herself the reason I broke up with her was because she had gained a little weight. She thought once I saw her I would change my mind. I didn't even know what to think of that. Slightly offended because she thought I was that shallow, and even more creeped out that she had her head so far in the sand. She invented an imaginary solution for me leaving her instead of seeing her own behavior for even a second.